In today's video, I'm going to show you how we take chicken from this, to this, to this.
She got a little fluffy butt.
I'm going to show you a full in-depth process of how we raise chicks into adults, how we butcher the easy way and the hard way, as well as piece and package that chicken. I'm going to leave timestamps below so that way you can skip to whichever part suits you. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk about how to raise your chicken. There's really three ways that you can start raising chicken. You can get them as chicks, you can get them as pullets, you can probably even find them as full grown that somebody's raised up and just doesn't want to butcher. But in this video, I'm going to talk about how most people raise their meat, and that's going to be from chicks. There's two ways you can get chicks. First way is going to be from ordering online. Places like Hoover Hatchery, Meyer Hatchery, McMurray Hatchery, those are some really great places. I personally like using Hoover Hatchery. I'm not sponsored at all, but Hoover Hatchery is my go-to because they have free shipping and I've never lost a single chick in the mail when I got it from Hoover Hatchery. The second way to do it is go to your local groups like on Facebook, or you can even go to Stockyard. A lot of times they'll have that sort of thing, or you can go to Tractor Supply. But I think the best way to do it is to order your chicks online, get them in the mail, pick them up at your local post office, and then bring them home. Now, when you order your chicks online, you're gonna pick a delivery date, and sometimes that can be pretty quick. Sometimes that can be really far out. You know, if you order chicks right now from a lot of places, you know, it's early February, the wait time's pretty long. So keep that in mind. The closer you get to spring, the longer the wait time. You know, if you order in the fall, it's not gonna be as long because there's not a lot of people raising chicks in the fall. When you do order it, they're gonna send them in the mail, and it's gonna usually take about 1 to 2 days, and they're gonna come to your local post office. They will not ship to your house. When you've ordered your chicks, I would recommend calling your local post office and say, hey, I have some chicks that are probably gonna come in the next couple days. Give me a call, here's my phone number. So that way they can give you a call as quickly as they can, and you won't risk losing any chicks in the process. There's only really two categories when you're raising meat chickens. The first is gonna be just a full-blown meat chicken. That's gonna consist of a Cornish cross, or something like a Red Ranger, Freedom Ranger, Red Ranger. It's basically all the same thing, just different hatcheries have different names. Cornish cross is gonna raise in about 5 to 8 weeks. It's extremely fast, and they produce a lot of meat. They have extremely big breasts. The downside to Cornish cross is that they don't forage very well, don't move very well. So if you keep them longer than about 12 weeks, I've heard that they can start having heart attacks and things like that. Now, Freedom Rangers, those ones are gonna look a lot more like a chicken. You know, they're gonna be fully feathered, they're not gonna have as many health issues, and I've seen people keep them for years. They do take a lot longer, so they're gonna take more like 8 to 14 weeks to raise, up to that butcher weight. The other meat chicken I didn't mention is an American Brez. That's a good option if you want really high quality meat. They do take a really long time. That's more like 4 months till butcher, but you can do a lot of research on the American Brez chicken. It's from France. They are pretty expensive, so keep that in mind when you're ordering your chickens. The next category is dual purpose. Those are gonna be like your New Hampshires, which is what we're gonna be butchering today. Orpingtons, Jersey Giants, those are some good options if you wanna have some eggs, and then along the line you would like to butcher them as well. Now, these are gonna be the basics of what you're gonna want before you order your chicks. You wanna be prepared. You don't wanna get your chicks in the mail and then realize you didn't have any of this stuff. So even before you order your chicks, I would recommend getting this. You're gonna want a brooder, and a brooder can be extremely simple. It can be very expensive and complicated, whichever route you wanna go. I like the cheap route, and so I like to go pick up a big tub. This is a 40-gallon tub from Tractor Supply, and then I build a little piece of wood with some netting on top, and I basically just cover that just like this, so that way the chicks can't jump out, nothing can get in and attack them, because we raise our chicks outside in a barn. We don't raise them in the house. You can do it that way if you want, but they are pretty noisy, so we do it outside. I like these tubs a lot because it's super easy to clean out, and when we're raising our chicks, what we do is we put wood chips or wood shavings or hay or straw, whatever you want, on top as bedding, and then as they poop and they pee in it, we don't clean it out every time because moving them out would be kind of a pain, and then having to clean it every couple days. We don't do that. So what we do is we do a deep bedding. So we just keep adding more and more and more. And you know, by the time they hit the age where it's time to go out in the grass, we remove them, we clean all this out, we can put it in compost. You can do whatever you want with it, but it's best if you just compost it. Now, the next thing you're gonna want is a waterer. I really like these automatic waterers. You can just fill the whole thing up Slide it on just like that, and as they drink it, it'll just continuously fill, so that way you don't need to check on their water so much. You can pick these up from Tractor Supply, Southern States, Rural King, whatever, you know, Ace Hardware, that sort of thing. You can get these pretty easily, and they're not very expensive. They come in metal or plastic, whichever route you want to go. And then you're going to need a feeder. These are really nice because it keeps them from knocking their feed over, so they can get inside these little holes. You can put the feed in, they can just peck at the feed, and you can slide it open just like that, fill the feed, and slide it back on. That way they don't knock it over. They don't, you know, a lot of times they'll want to stand inside the feed bin, so that way they don't actually poop in it and, you know, kind of contaminate the feed. And the next thing you want for your brooder is a heat lamp. This is extremely important. It doesn't matter if you're in the dead of summer or, you know, whenever. The nights are going to get pretty cold no matter where you're at, and so it's very important that you have a heat lamp to keep them warm. And you're not going to need this the entire time. You're just going to need it while they're chicks, and maybe a little bit afterwards, depending on what time you raise chicks. It all depends. So if you're raising in wintertime, you're going to need this a lot longer than if you're raising in the summertime. It's really important that when you get them in the mail, you have your brooder all set up, you have your water all set up, your feed set up, your heat lamp, everything's set up, so that way when they come, you can just pop them into the brooder. It's super simple. You're not rushing around. I've done that before where I was just rushing around trying to get everything set up. One of the first things you're going to want to do is when you pick your chicks up out of the box, you're going to put them into the brooder, and you're going to actually want to kind of grab their head and dip their beak in the water. And you don't necessarily need to do that with every single one of them. I usually do it with every single one, but if you have 100, that's kind of complicated. So I usually do it to a few, so that way they know where their water's at. They'll find their feed pretty quick, but it's really important that they get water right away because a lot of times they've been without it for a day or two. I also like to put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the water when they first show up. That's going to help support their immune system, and later on in life it'll actually help, if you continue to do that, it'll help fight parasites and things like that. Now, as far as feed goes for chicks, you don't really have a lot of options. We mix feed for our adult chickens, and I'm gonna go over that later in the video. But when you have chicks, I would just recommend go get a chick starter. They're not gonna be on it for a really long time. Once your chicks get older, you're gonna start thinking about putting them on grass, preferably on grass, doing something like this, like a mobile coop. When it comes time to do that, it's really important that you don't just take them from the brooder, throw them into the coop, and, you know, forget about the heat lamp. Depending on the time of year, you may still need to put a heat lamp in there with them. And honestly, if you wanted, you could probably just brood them right into a chicken tractor right away. You know, if you had severe weather or anything like that, they're not gonna be as protected. For most meat birds, you're gonna be putting them on grass between 2 to 3 weeks. It's pretty quick. For a lot of other breeds, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. It kind of depends. But like I said, you can really put them on grass whenever you want. If you have snow on the ground, that's not gonna be a good idea. They're gonna have a really hard time surviving. But most people aren't raising chicks in the wintertime. The good rule of thumb is 2 to 3 weeks. Give them a little heat lamp for a while on the nights, and then once they hit, you know, 4 or 5 weeks, a lot of times I'll take that heat lamp away and they'll be just fine. Once you get your chickens on grass, you're gonna wanna put them into a shelter. When you use a mobile chicken tractor, they're gonna be able to forage, they're gonna eat a lot of greens, they're gonna be a much healthier chicken, it's gonna taste a lot better. That's not to say you can't raise them in a coop, kind of stationary, just deep bed them. You can absolutely do that. This is a John Siskovich tractor. You can Google it, you can easily get the plans for this. I think it costs about $200, $225 if you're buying new materials to build this chicken tractor. I really like this chicken tractor because I have a big door, I can step in extremely easy, I can get in and feed them easy, I can get in and water them really easy. It just makes for a smooth process of raising chicks. A Siskovich tractor is going to be a lot heavier than, let's say, a Salatin tractor, which is more of the flat ones where you kind of raise up the top to feed them and you do everything from above. That's totally fine. Chickens don't need all this space up here. They're totally fine having, you know, a couple feet off the ground. Probably a little cheaper than a Siskovich tractor as well. You're not super strong or you have a bad back, the Siskovich tractor might not be the best option. Ashland moves these just fine without me. I don't want anybody out there to hurt their backs. And a little side note, you can totally make any kind of chicken tractor you want. I'll put a photo of my first chicken tractor I ever made. I made it out of ABS plumbing pipe, drain pipe as the skids because I thought it was going to be lighter. It worked just fine. Like I said, you could build whatever you want. You can do something like Siskovich tractor, you can do a Joel Salatin tractor, and you can make up your own and make an even better tractor than what they thought of. So usually you're gonna feed that chick starter, you know, for the first 3-4 weeks And then once you put them on the grass, you're gonna want to start feeding an actual grower feed. Now you can go get a grower feed at the store, probably like 22-24% is what you're gonna find. I don't know how expensive it is right now, but feed costs are getting pretty pricey. We actually like to make our own feed. So this is a 30% protein feed that we mix ourselves, and here in Kentucky in 2023, this is costing me $14 for every 50 pounds of feed. And like I said, that's 30% protein. That is unheard of. You can't ever find anything that cheap at Tractor Supply. You're gonna have to mix it yourself. I do have a short on YouTube about how we mix this, so if you want detailed explanation, you can go find that. But this is basically 1 part corn, 1 part wheat, 1 part oats, and a 1/3 part soybean meal, 30% protein. This is the way to do it if you're gonna wanna save some money and also give your chickens a really high amount of protein for faster growth. And just a side note, we feed this to our layers as well. Now, when you feed your chicks, you don't wanna just have feed out there constantly. You wanna do 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Don't just leave a feed dish out for them like you do your egg layers, especially if you have like Cornish cross. They're just gonna eat and eat and eat and eat, and that can cause them some health issues. So I would recommend 12 hours of feed, you know, feed once in the morning, come back out around 3 o'clock when you're moving them again, and feed them again, make sure their dish is full. And then at night, if they still have feed left, pull it, and then again in the morning, feed them. Now in 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 14 weeks or whatever length of time you wanna raise your meat birds for comes along, you wanna hold their feed for the last 24 hours. So like these meat birds that we're gonna be butchering today, they haven't been fed since yesterday morning. We've kept their feed away, and so that'll keep them from having you know, a full digestive system. It keeps them from pooping on you when you're butchering them. So keep that in mind when you're ready to butcher. Try to plan ahead for about 24 hours. That's how we take them from chicks to chicken to this size. That's how we feed them. Those are the materials we need to take care of them. And now, today, we're gonna start butchering. Now there's a lot of ways that you can butcher your chickens. For me, there's 2 ways. There's a really easy, quick, and more expensive way, or there's the hard, slow, but cheap way. Maybe the first time you raise chickens, you're not sure if you wanna do this every single year, so maybe you do it the harder, the slower, and the cheaper way. If you're in the business of raising chickens now, like most people are once they've raised some chickens, you're probably gonna wanna invest in some equipment that's gonna save you some time and make it a lot easier to butcher your chickens, especially if you're doing a lot of them. If you're doing more than 25, it becomes pretty big hassle to butcher in a day. So I would strongly recommend investing in some good equipment. I'm gonna cover both ways for you. I like to do it the easy, quick, more expensive way because we've invested in the equipment. But I'm also gonna show you how to do this in your kitchen using everything you have at home and hand plucking. So I'm gonna first cover the way I like to do it. Just takes less time. If you just have a few chickens, probably not worth buying a chicken plucker and, you know, an expensive scalder. It's probably just better to do it in your kitchen. Or you could even rent these things. If you have Facebook and you enjoy Facebook, a lot of people hate Facebook, I don't blame you, but if you enjoy Facebook, I would recommend getting in some communities in your area. There's so many groups. There's some vague groups for the whole country or, you know, the world. And then there's groups that are just for a state or even, you know, an area in your state. So I would recommend getting in those groups. Most of those people are super helpful. The homesteading community is just one of the best communities in my opinion. Always helpful, never rude, and, you know, very inviting for new people that don't know what they're doing. I would recommend checking those groups out because a lot of those people might be willing to bring you their butchering setup. You know, if you're in northeastern Kentucky, I actually offer this for rent in our area. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. So first we've got our kill cones. This is where we're gonna dispatch the chickens. We have some buckets that's gonna catch the blood. And then we've got our scalder and we're gonna dip them in there, and that's 145 degrees. You can see the temperature set right at that. And what that'll do is that'll release the feathers, so that way the chicken plucker has an easier time removing them. So we'll turn the chicken plucker on, we'll throw both birds in, they'll spin around, and then the feathers will come out the backside onto the ground there. Once they've been plucked, we'll put them onto the processing table, and this is where we'll cut off the legs and the head and get rid of the guts and all that nasty stuff. And we will actually save the legs and any bones or anything for chicken broth or stock. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do when you start butchering is you're gonna wanna fill this up with water. You wanna heat your water up. We wanna get that water to about 140, 145 degrees. Now that we've got our water heated up, let's talk about knives. The one you're probably gonna see is this one. And this is gonna be perfect. This is how I like to butcher and kind of, you know, clean up the chicken. I like to use this knife. When I'm dispatching a chicken, I like to use something like this. It's a little bit smaller, it's not so big, so I'm not worried about cutting myself, because you're gonna basically be holding the chicken's neck and then you're gonna slice on both sides. So I like to use a little stubby knife like this when I'm actually dispatching the chicken. If you're doing a lot of chickens, this is gonna be one thing you're really gonna wanna have. Get a nice clean tub, and you're gonna wanna get a bunch of ice. And we're gonna basically fill this up with ice and a little bit of water. And as we're butchering, we're gonna put the chickens in here to cool, so that way they stay nice and cold. The cold will actually make it a little easier to process them. When the meat's cold and not so warm, it's a lot easier to cut and cut into pieces. Have a hose nearby. You're gonna really wanna clean off your chicken as you're doing this, you know, as you're cutting the guts and everything out of the chicken. It can get a little messy, it can get bloody, and you can get some poop there. And so if you get any of that, you want to make sure you clean off your table and spray all that stuff away. Get yourself a nice apron. This is going to be pretty messy. If you got nice clothes, you're not going to want to wear those, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and butcher these chickens. And we're going to want to grab his feet, and we're going to dip him in, and we want to keep his head so it goes through the cone. Put him upside down, just like this. Now this part right here, I can't really show on YouTube. They don't like that sort of thing. So I'm gonna kind of show you a close-up first. We're gonna wanna grab the neck. You don't wanna pull too hard. You can break these necks pretty easily, so be careful. We're gonna wanna cut on this side of them, on the right there, and we're gonna cut on this side on the left. And basically that's gonna cut their arteries, so that way they bleed out. It's very painless, and they will fidget a little bit, but don't worry, they are not alive. So we're gonna grab them by the head just like this. You wanna move some of these feathers here. We'll cut back after we do this. All right, he's dispatched now, and while he's bleeding out, I like to hold him right here because they will wiggle around a little bit, and you can see he's twitching a little bit. So I like to hold them in place because they can jump out of there. I have seen it before, it's happened to me. And while that one's bleeding out there, I'm gonna go grab another one so that way we can do 2 at a time. Now what we just did, what's in our kill cone right now is a rooster, and I'm gonna do a hen because I wanna show you the difference in size between these two. When you're ordering your chicks, keep that in mind because as you see us processing, you'll see that this hen is a lot smaller than that rooster. Now that these guys have stopped moving around, let's go ahead and take them and put them in the scalder. And while we're scalding these, I would much rather you not scald them enough than scald them too much. So it's much better to have to pull pin feathers out than it is to cook your meat, or when you're in the chicken plucker and accidentally rip some of the skin. We do not want that. Now you can grab them by the feet and do it this way if you'd like, or if you got a little poker, you can just shove them on down in there. So as you're scalding, you're gonna wanna pull those off. You can see that some of those feathers are coming off pretty nice. Yeah, you can see the wing feathers are coming off pretty quick and easy. So I'm gonna pull these guys out. We'll go ahead and place them in the plucker here. We do not want to pluck too long. Like I said, you can easily tear the skin. If you feel anything on your lip, you feel anything on your face, definitely don't lick it. All right, I'm gonna call it quits on those. I don't want the skin to rip or anything, so we'll just hand pluck the pin feathers out. I'm gonna go ahead and pluck all these feathers out of here. They should come off pretty easy. I wanted to show you this when you're ordering your chickens. This is our hen, this is our rooster. And keep in mind, this is a New Hampshire red. This is a dual purpose breed, so you can see they don't have huge breasts. You can see there's not a lot of breast on them. They have good sized legs and everything, but this is not a Cornish cross. So if you're watching this and you're like, man, those look small, it's because they are. When you don't get a Cornish cross, you are gonna get a smaller chicken. But I just wanted to show you that if you order a straight run, which is mixed male and female hens and roosters, or if you order just roosters or just hens, this is what you're looking at. So at 8 weeks, roosters are gonna be bigger, hens are gonna be smaller. Let's go ahead and process this rooster here. I'm gonna just yank the head off. So we're just gonna pull, hold the neck, and we're just gonna pull up. And you might get an esophagus with it and all that, but we'll keep that for our gut pile. Next thing I wanna do, I don't know if you can see this, there's this big crop right here. See that guy? That's a crop. I wanna go ahead and remove that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull some of the skin up by the neck. I'm gonna go ahead and slice into it a little bit, expose it, kind of pull the skin away. The crop is pretty slimy, so it's this guy right here, and it's up against the breast, it's up against the neck there. So you might have to dig your fingers in behind it. Like I said, it's kind of slimy, it's kind of snotty, so this isn't the easiest thing to do, but if you kind of shove your thumb up and pull away, you can kind of get it out of there. Now, I'm not ripping this off of here. I'm not trying to rip this away from the carcass, I'm just trying to free it up from the breast. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the esophagus and the windpipe, kind of shove my thumb under and pull it down and kind of expose, and there you go. We already pulled the esophagus out of there, so there's only a little bit left, but that way, we're just gonna set that just like that. Now, it's totally up to you what you want to do here. You can cut this neck off. You can, I'm gonna cut some of the skin off right here. You can do whatever you want. A lot of people, if you buy chicken at the store, you'll actually have the neck kind of tucked in to the bird. So totally up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and cut ours off because I actually like to use these for stock. This one's a little trickier. So if you grab here and pull, you might have to kind of cut around it a little bit. Just like so, and then pull up just like that. You can release the neck. A lot of people start with the feet, but I like to do the front side first. Now, there's a joint right in here, and we're gonna go find that, and then there's a knuckle that we're gonna wanna come around. So you can see it kind of drop down and freed itself. You're gonna wanna cut into that, and then you can cut on the other side, and then there's the leg. Now, the legs and the necks, I like to save for bone broth and chicken stock. So again, same thing, we're gonna cut that tendon, that'll kind of release it. You can separate the joint, just like that, and there's your leg. Now, this part is very important. So you can see, here's the rectal organ right there. So we do not wanna just stab into this chicken because you're gonna stab into the intestines and you're gonna get poop inside your chicken, and we do not want that, that'll contaminate it. If you do get a little bit, you got your water nearby, you got your hose, just spray everything off, make sure it's nice and clean. So what we do is we pull the skin up again, and I like to actually flip my blade and kind of stab through just like this. You can do something like this if you like, if you're comfortable with it. And then there's kind of another lining here. So be very careful to open that up. Now you can see we've got opened into the organs, and so we're gonna gently pull the skin apart here, and you can start to see everything inside there. So I'm gonna reach in, I'm gonna pull all this out. And like I said, again, with the crop and everything, I'm not ripping these out, I'm just pulling them out. I'm not separating them from the carcass here. So you can see I got all the intestines, you got some livers and everything. So I'm gonna hold it just like this, and I'm gonna cut around the butt here, around the butt. I do not want to pierce into this because then you're gonna get poop inside your carcass. So we're gonna just cut that butt out. Just like that. And now we've got all our guts, and we can throw those in the guts pile. You can compost your guts, you can feed them to pigs, whatever you want to do. Now we're gonna reach back in here. We've got a few things in here. So if you've got a rooster, there's your testicles. If you didn't know, roosters have testicles inside their body, way up in the cavity. If you've ever seen a caponizing video, that's why it's so difficult. And then we also have some lungs. The lungs are a little hard to get, and honestly, I always feel like I grab them in pieces. They tend to separate pretty easily. The lungs are right at the bottom, along the rib cage. Very hard to get to. There you are. You can see it kind of came out in pieces. It's not very pretty, but there's the lungs. Now I got my chicken all cleaned out. I'm gonna go ahead and spray it. Kind of clean up my table. Spray everything out of there. Give it a good spray on the outside. Now we'll take that chicken and put it into our ice bath. That might have been a lot of information for you, but feel free to pause this video, rewind, go rewatch it again. If you ever have any questions, shoot me an email. Now that I've shown you the easy way and the fast way, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the harder way, but also the cheaper way that is gonna be a lot easier if you're just getting into starting your own meat chickens. Now we're in here in the kitchen. I filled a big pot. You want a really tall pot because, you know, it's a chicken, they're pretty big, so you gotta be able to scald the whole thing. I mean, you could do half and then half, but if you have a pot this size, that's gonna be the easiest. So I'm gonna turn this on high heat. I'm just gonna heat this up to about 145, 150-ish degrees. You can go a little bit more than that because we're going to be hand plucking. You might be going back into the scalder quite a bit because you need to loosen those feathers up. All right, now our water's at about 150, 155 degrees. That should be good enough. You might need to throw back on the stove, but we're going to take this back outside because Ashley wouldn't be too happy if I got feathers all over the house. So I dispatched my chicken the exact same way, and really, these kill cones are really cheap, but if you didn't want to use a kill cone, I mean, you can do the old hatchet way. I would make sure you hold it down because it will go crazy, and you can also just do the same way I'm doing, but just holding it down as well, but that'll probably take 2 people. The kill cone's really nice because it's just 1-person deal. I've got my hot water here. I'm gonna scald this just like I would before on the other scalder. All right, these feathers are starting to come off pretty good. Remember, this is gonna be pretty hot, so be careful. If you need to, let it cool down. We're just gonna start yanking these feathers out, and they'll come out pretty easy. They're gonna be a little fluffier and whatnot, but the hardest ones are gonna be these wing feathers, and so you might have to kind of grip the wing and yank them. But I would recommend just take a pinching motion and just kind of pinch everywhere and just start pinching all these off. Now this doesn't take too long. It might just take a couple extra minutes instead of using the plucker. So if you're not doing a ton of birds every single year, this is probably the way to go. Or if, you know, let's say you can't get electricity where you're at, you're off grid or something, this is obviously doesn't take electricity to do this. And then what I like to do is in one hand, I'll have my hose, in the other, I'll just kind of pinch and we'll kind of clean this bird up real nice. All right, now we got it all cleaned up. We'll go inside. I'll show you how to piece it out, how to package it, how to food save it, all that good stuff. All right, now I'm back inside. We have finished butchering, and now we are ready to package and process these chickens. The first way you can package your chickens is the way that a lot of people will do it, like Justin Rhodes. They use a big bag, they'll dip it in some hot water that'll release the air, and then they tighten the bag quickly, and that basically just creates a suction inside. The second way is to use a food saver. I think this way is much easier. It's totally up to you whichever way you want to go. This way uses electricity, the other way doesn't need electricity. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I break down a chicken and then how I package it, and then I'm also going to show you how I package a whole chicken, which you can do spatchcock or you can just leave it whole like it is. All right, let's go ahead and piece this chicken out. So I'm going to start with the wings here. We don't want to get a lot of that breast in, so we want to stay real close to the wing on that. We're gonna cut just like that. Flip the bird over, do the same thing on the other side. We're gonna expose that joint right there. If you need to, go ahead and pull it and pop that joint out so you can get underneath it. And like I said, you don't wanna go way in here to the breast. You wanna stay as close to the wing as possible. The breast meat's the best meat, so, well, at least some people think it's the best meat. These are pretty good too. Now I'm going to go on to the legs. Basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to slice the skin right next to the breast, and that's going to kind of pull away the thigh and the leg. And so I'll do the same thing on this side, and then I'll flip it, and I'm just going to pull these apart from the breast, and you'll see that the bone's going to pop through on the thigh, and I want that on both sides. And then I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, and we'll stay real close. There's a really good piece of meat in there, so we want to make sure we get that. There it is. You see that? There's a big piece of meat kind of on the back. Pretty important to get that one. And there you go. You got your leg and your thigh. We'll go ahead and break those up in a second. And then we're going to flip this over again, do the exact same thing. Like I said, there's a really good piece of meat in there, so make sure you get that. You can see it comes right into the back like that. And if you're doing Cornish cross, it's gonna be a lot bigger. There you have it. There's your thigh and your leg. So we'll discard those for a second. We'll go ahead and cut these breasts. The breasts on these chickens aren't very big, so this is gonna be a little trickier, but I'm gonna start right by the wing and I'm gonna work my way down, just staying really, really close to those bones. I just want the edge of the bone to be hitting the side of my blade here. We'll just keep working our way down. And then you're gonna hit that top breastbone in between each breast, and we're gonna leave it just like that. I'm gonna flip it over. Do the exact same thing. There's a lot of meat. Most of the breast meat is gonna be here in the front, especially on these smaller birds. But we want everything. So cut as close to the bone as you can. Now we're getting really close to that top bone. So now I kind of pull the breast back and I start working along that top bone, and at a certain point should be able to just kind of pull this back. And then we'll want to discard this for stock. And now I've got our breast. So I'm going to take the skin off this. We don't usually eat the skin on the breasts. Again, save that for stock. And there you go. These are really tiny breasts on these chickens, but that's what you're kind of looking at when you're getting the dual purpose. It's going to be a lot smaller. Now I'm going to show you how to break down this thigh and leg. So there's a fat line right here, and that's where the joint's going to be. And usually it's going to be on the leg side here. But you might kind of have to, yep, see, it's right on that leg side. And if you need to, go ahead and pop it out and look at that joint. The more you hit that joint, the duller your blade's going to be. So there you go. That's how you get your thigh and your leg. I'll do that again. See that fat line right between the thigh there? Go ahead and do it on the leg side and go right through. And that's how you get your thigh and your leg. So now we're gonna package these pieces of chicken up, and I use my Food Saver. Got my Food Saver bags. You can get these at Walmart. The thing I like about these is that you can decide what size bag you want. So you just roll them out and then you can cut them however you want them. I'm just gonna do these breasts right here. I'm not gonna need a lot. It's probably better to cut off a little more than you need. So we're gonna lift our Food Saver up. We're gonna put it right in this green slot right here. First, we need to seal up this bag. We need to create a bag. So we're gonna hit the seal button. Let that go for a second till it starts blinking. And you can see, created a nice seal right along the top there. Now we can put our chicken breast right inside. So I've got my breast inside the bag there. I'm gonna stick this again in the green side. And before I go, I'm gonna click mode and I'm gonna turn it to moist. There's a dry mode and a moist mode, and when you have wet chicken, you wanna turn it to moist. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit vacuum. And then I'm gonna seal it. Nice and packaged, nice and sealed. No air inside that bag, sealed up great. So I'll just take this and I'll plop it in my freezer. When I'm doing a whole chicken, especially for food saving, when I'm using the Food Saver to package it, I like to do spatchcock, and basically what that is we're gonna take our chicken, we're gonna flip it over, and then we're gonna take some big shears, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna go right along the spine right here, and we're just gonna cut this out. This might be a little tricky, but if you got some good shears, it should be able to get through it. And we're just gonna cut right along the back here, all the way through, and then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. All the way, we want to be above the thigh. And we want to keep crunching through it. All the way through. So now we can take spinal cord out right there, and you can save that for stock as well. And then we're going to take our chicken, fold it out like this, and I'm just going to put a crunch just like that, and that basically just pops the bones and pushes it flat down to the ground. So this is a lot easier to package this way. It'll probably last a lot longer too because you don't have a bunch of air sitting in it. So I take this, let's put it in the Food Saver. All right, on this one, we're gonna wanna use a much bigger bag, obviously. We'll take our spatchcock chicken. And I shove it all the way down in there. So now we'll take this, put it right in there, hit vacuum, and then we hit seal. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was a super detailed video. I was looking out there for an all-in-one video and I couldn't find it, so I figured I'd give it to you guys. This is how we do things. You might do it a little different, and that's just fine. I hope this helped a little bit, and if you are deciding to take this journey on raising your own meat, whether it's chicken or hogs or cattle or whatever it is, I just want to say you're awesome. If you've made it this far, you're awesome. We love our viewers so much, and I congratulate you for wanting to take this risk, make this life change. It's definitely not easy. There's a lot of work in it, but when you finally sit down for dinner and eating something that you grew, you raised, it's just, there's no better feeling in the world. So congratulations to you guys for wanting to take the step to raise your own meat. I think it's awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.